Closing the gap. As long as we moving together, then nothing is holding us back. I cannot factor in none of your feelings. We dealing in actual facts. Just know our numbers exact. Keep it 1,000. If you see the universe dishing his crown, you won't see your calves. Told you we closing the gap. They covered the truth, he opened the lid. I'm going over, they flow like a bridge. You tell a tree by its fruit like a fig. Went from auction blocks to doing the bid. We were chosen so that I get it big. The world is the darkest, as cold as it gets. Truth is the light, and our path will be lit by the love of the leader. No doubts in this wig. Cured our illness, I know that they sick. Ooh.
Closing the Gap Broadcast Network, the Farrakhan Generation.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the all-wise, true, and living God who came to us in the person of Master Wallace Father Muhammad. We thank that Almighty God for coming out of the east unto the west and raising that one from amongst the chosen people of God. That one that I am speaking of is indeed the exalted living Christ, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. We thank both the Mahdi, the self-guided one, the supreme being, and that Christ, the crusher of the wicked, for raising that third human being, that third man. The one that I am speaking of is indeed the exalted Messiah amongst us, in our midst, that man, the most honorable minister, Louis Eugene Farrakhan, in their holy and righteous names. We greet you from around the country and from even around the world with the greeting words of peace and of paradise, of Assalamu alaikum. I am your brother and forever servant, Brother Michael Jamal Hassan Muhammad, and thank you for tuning in to this week's interview on the one and only Closing the Gap Broadcast Network, the Farrakhan Generation. And I'm excited because I haven't been able to do this in a week or so. At this time, we would like to introduce, and I'll give way to our dear sister, your beloved dear sister, Sister Maryam Alima Warith Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, who appeared to us in the person of Master W. Father Muhammad, to whom all praises forever due. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I further bear witness that Muhammad is the servant and messenger of Allah. I further bear witness that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is the risen and exalted Christ, the Mahdi. And I continue to bear witness in the one that they left as our comforter, our brother, our friend, the Messiah in our midst, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It is in these three great names that I greet you with the beloved words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. It's just that they're right behind him. And so I'm just like looking at each one of them as I say the next one. All praises to Allah. Beautiful, beautiful backdrop. We have with us this evening our beloved brother, student minister Arthur Muhammad. And I would love to introduce him properly this time. I haven't read a bio in a minute. So praise to Allah. Thank you, Brother Arthur, for your bio. Student minister Arthur Muhammad is a lifelong resident of the city of Mount Vernon, New York, and has served his community in many professional capacities. He is the former director of the Mount Vernon Reentry Program, where he helped dozens of young men and women reestablish themselves back into the community after years of incarceration. He is the former program director of the SNUG program, which is guns, spelled backwards, where he worked with gang members to attain employment, seek higher education, and de-escalate violence in the Mount Vernon community. He is currently the youth director specialist with Mount Vernon City School District and serves as a member of the Public Safety Committee for the city of Mount Vernon. Student Minister Arthur. Oh, I keep wanting to say Ishmael. Student Minister Arthur graduated from Iona Iona College in 1987 with a bachelor's degree in business administration and obtained a master's degree in education from the American College of Education. He is a former rap artist with the Zulu Nation and spends his pastime as a professional DJ. Brother Arthur joined the Nation of Islam in 1988. Over his 35 years of service as a member of the Mosque number 7 in Harlem, New York, he has served as orientation class instructor, squad leader, lieutenant, drill instructor, and student in the ministry. He is currently the student assistant minister of Mosque number 7 and served in that capacity for over a decade directly under the late student regional minister Abdul Hafiz Muhammad. Brother Arthur has been married for 29 years to his wife, Sister Judge Michelle Muhammad, and they have 4 daughters. To the beloved, beautiful audience, Brother Student Minister Arthur Muhammad, we greet you.
Man, so honored to be on this show. Love the energy, the vibration. I first want to apologize for not being suited and booted, but tonight is a historic night. Tonight is bowling night around the Nation of Islam.
It's
So
Yes.
after this interview, I plan to get my bowl on. So I found a shirt in my closet that was closest to a bowling shirt. So I apologize for not being suited, brother Michael. You showing me up, man.
I'm sorry. I can take this right off. It'd be no
No, sir.
problem.
No, sir. You look so beautiful.
Praise be to Allah.
And we could
Well,
comment
well,
on what Brother Student Minister Arthur is talking about. You know, that we're having family night again. Woohoo!
yes,
Tuesday's night is
yes.
family night. So we're kind of still doing that here right now because we're with the family.
That's right.
Well, dear brother Arthur, is there anything you want to say as an intro to the people before we get started?
Well, on my bio, which was last year, so my wife and I have been married for 30 years. All praises due to Allah. I met
Wow.
I I met my wife, sister Nichelle, when she was 13 and I was 15.
Oh,
And I've known, we knew each other throughout high school and college. And she denied all of my advances because my advances had some, slightly nefarious intents. But it wasn't until we had some time away from each other and I had joined the nation and she saw me and she saw the character that the teachings developed in me, the faith, the love. And when I saw her, that was the furthest thing from my mind. She actually began to become attracted to this man that I was becoming by the grace of Allah. And we got married in 2023. I
Wow.
mean 2023 in 1993, and the rest is an ongoing history.
Wow.
due to Allah.
Allahu Akbar.
Congratulations on 30 years.
Thank you. All
Yes,
praises due to Allah.
Indeed.
indeed. Yes, ma'am. It's on you, Sister Maryam.
Yes, sir. Family, I want to implore you, as always, to put your questions that you may have for Student Minister Arthur into the chat and we will ask them on your behalf. So, Student Minister Arthur, your bio, let me see if this works. Yes. You spoke about being I don't want to say the title incorrectly, but you work with brothers and sisters that have been incarcerated to reestablish them or help them get reestablished in the working community and just in the community at large. So I wanted to ask you, actually, I wanted to read something. I wanted to read something to preface it because the minister at Student Minister Jabril's Janaza, may Allah forever be pleased with him, spoke about love and the study guide that we're on right now, Closing the Gap, study guide 20, it has that in there. And so I just wanted to read one quick excerpt. In the truth is the law, but in the truth is not necessarily the love of the law. That has to come from the heart when it is connected to Allah God. When the heart is connected to Allah God, it sees the law as a blessing from Allah God to give order and regularity to our lives and to discipline our affairs then we grow in love with Allah God and in love with the law. When we love
Mm.
Allah God and love the law, we outgrow the need for the law. So then love is the end of the law. And that is page
Wow.
30, I believe, in the study guide. And I prefaced with that because I just asked the question. Have you have you, and if so, how have you incorporated the love for Allah's law in helping to reestablish our brothers and sisters back into the community after their incarceration?
Well,
Mm.
I think that in law is order, and many of our brothers who live the street life where there is no order, there is no law, there is no respect for rules, they develop their survival dynamics being lawless.
Mm.
And when, after spending time behind bars, and they realized that lawlessness does not work, they needed to depend on someone and give them confidence that following law would work out.
Mm.
So, obviously, if you're going to work with formerly incarcerated people, you have being a follower of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we
Yes.
hold or subscribe to a higher law than the laws of this land, which is the
Mm.
restrictive law. And so once we can show that these teachings that we have or subscribe to are life giving, life saving, life sustaining teachings, and they advance you from one who is just surviving to one who is living, then our young people have confidence. You have to show them that the order that following law produces is something that will sustain them for the rest of their life. So I was able to be successful working with these young people because I strive to be a product of the product.
Wow. Allahu Akbar. Praise be to Allah. Well, dear student minister Arthur, I wanted to kind of reference the title and ask a question on in conjunction with that. The title that you had chose was pretty beautiful. It's Closing the Gap Through Expanding the Mind. So it made me actually think of the most recent untimely transitional journey of student minister Hafiz Muhammad, and how there is a middle period there that had to be protected. So I wanted to ask you, in reference to that title, how has how have you maintained, or the believers expanded in their love in New York City, and how have you and the believers maintained that transitional period that there would not be a gap to have to close?
Man, so beautiful. I have to thank my big brother, student minister Ishmael Muhammad, who nursed
Mm.
us as a mosque. We would have for 1 year straight wellness meetings, Muhammad Mosque number 7 and number 7C, our Brooklyn Mosque. And we deliberately asked the executive council to come and speak words of faith and healing, comfort to us because we were reeling. As you read my bio, I came in 1988. And though we've
Wow.
had Brother Conrad, Brother Khalid, and Brother Ben
Mm.
Chavis came along the
Yes.
way, Brother Hafiz was
Yes.
always there. So he was my first
Yes.
minister. Many of the believers, he named their children. He was their children's godfather. He was the
Yes.
one that came. So that was a tremendous loss. And I by no means thought that I could come in and fill his shoes. But because of Brother Minister Ishmael, Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, of course, he gave us the confidence and the faith that we could move on in spite of our brother's absence. And so we
Mm.
were able to do so first virtually. And then when we moved back into the mosque before we renovated the mosque, I try to select subjects, make all things new. I tried to
Mm,
make subjects that would speak
yes.
life into our hearts, and always asked us to dedicate our doings in the name and in the spirit of Brother Abdul Hafiz Muhammad, so that we can always keep him in his works. Because you know oftentimes I'll get an adulation, or I'll get credit for some of the good works that we're doing, but I remind people that I'm standing on his shoulders, and that if he was not and the laborers were not able to have a solid base, I would not have a launching pad by which to do the good works in the
Mm,
manner which we have. So we will
mm,
always keep him up front forever. He died a martyr, he died a
yes.
soldier, and a lover for the
Yes.
Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. May Allah
Allahu
forever
Akbar.
be pleased with our brother.
Thank you so much for that response, Minister Arthur. Yes, ma'am, Sister
Cool.
Maryam.
Yes. What one thing? Well, you already mentioned her. I didn't want to mention her again. This is Michelle. I wanted to ask you, what can you share that has helped maintain the successful marriage between you and your wife? It's
Man,
marriage season, so.
a couple of things, just some marital
Beautiful.
antidotes.
Mhm.
The goal of conflict is resolution. The
Mm.
goal of conflict is not tit for tat. It's not one upsmanship. It's not who can best who can out argue, out cuss who. Just like a scientist or a mathematician, the goal of conflict is to do what? Solve the problem, resolution. And if you
Yes.
take that philosophy into heart, you won't have thin skin. You won't be affected by what happens. Your mindset will be, let's solve the problem so that we can move on. That's number one. The second thing is that, you know, you cannot make someone's personality over. You have character, you have attitude, you have personality. As the
Mm.
Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, attitudes are easier to change, for an attitude is just a viewpoint, a point of view, how you see things. And with the right knowledge and the right spirit, you can see things differently. That's how many of us joined the Nation of Islam.
Mm.
Our attitude was changed. Our character can be
Wow.
changed as well, because good morals produces good manners, and of
Come
course good
on.
manners is good character. However, most times personalities are formed in the womb, and by 5 6 years old our personalities are pretty much there. So when you marry a person during the courtship process, you should study a person's personality, and if their personality is turning you off, even
Mm.
if their beauty or their intellect is turning you on, and their personality is a deal breaker, don't try to change somebody's personality, because it's going to be very, very difficult. So
Ooh.
learning personalities, and that's my advice. Make sure you love that person's personality.
That is
Ooh, boy.
beautiful advice.
Isn't it?
I don't think yeah, okay.
I love the dynamics between me and Sister Maryam, especially right now, because we're asking several types of questions that all are referencing closing a gap of something through the expansion of the mind. So it's cool. Um, but I wanted to raise up a story, um, not to go away from the marriage, but I wanted to raise up a story that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had brought up before, and it was in reference to the messenger, the Honorable Elijah, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, saying to him in regards to his travel going to New York to be the minister. He said, or he told us that he said that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to him, "Do you think you can ride that horse?" And and the Most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan responded back, "Well, if you and the master have the reins, then I will ride that horse." And I'm Hope I've said it as close as possible with
That
Dr.
was nearly
Samuel.
close. It was the minister was asked by one of the students in the ministry after the first week of him being called from Boston. He asked,
Oh,
"Can you
yes,
ride
sir.
this horse?" And he says, "As long as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Honorable, long as God and His messenger
Yes,
are pulling the reins, then I can ride the horse."
yes, sir. That's right. It wasn't Elijah Muhammad that was saying that. It was another brother in the
It was the
nation at that time.
minister saying it to Brother James. I think it was Brother
Oh,
James Najee. He said it was a
perfect.
brother in the ministry class. I believe it was Brother James Najee that he said it
Yes,
to.
sir. Praise be to Allah. Thank you so much. That's why I wanted to make sure, and I got the correction on that. But I looked up your name, and of course, I love the name meaning. And Arthur means strong bear. Interesting, right? So I looked up what a bear, the strength of a bear is. An individual grizzly bear is 5 times as strong as a human. So I said, wow, I wonder what type of strength does it take to be able to maintain such a city. We have been taught that in our nation that New York is the heartbeat of the nation, and without a heartbeat, you go into cardiac arrest. So I wanted to ask, what type of strength did you have to muster up to be able to prevent cardiac arrest in such a spiritual organ that is that important to our nation and its evolvement?
Thank you for that question. I'll answer it two ways. Number one, I have to thank Allah for a phenomenal group of laborers.
Yes, sir.
Captain Magid, Sister Jana, Secretary Stephen, just those three alone, nearly 100 years of labor amongst them. But we also have a local captain and a protocol director who had my back and who were doing the work before myself. So I was able to add on to a cohesive unit of laborers. That's
Mm,
number one. But if you know Brother Arthur and those who know me, I was not seeking a position. I was not seeking a title.
yes, sir.
36 years in the Nation of Islam, I want to retire with one jersey. Like Kobe Bryant, he was a Laker
Yeah.
for life. I'm
Yes, sir.
NOI Mosque number 7 for life.
For
So
life.
when our brother Minister Hafiz, may Allah be pleased with him, passed away, I didn't know, where I would be asked to serve. I didn't know if somebody would be asked to come from out of town to head up the nation. I didn't know if we would be kind of guided from our national headquarters. So by me kind of filling in where our brother left off, it was natural for me to do because I'm the type of brother that if something needs to be swept up, I'm gonna find me a broom. If I'm the first one at the mosque, and the next mail to come in, I'm searching him. I'm Team New York. This is the mosque
Yes.
that raised me, and so I want to do whatever. So being after a while, it didn't look like they were going to bring in anybody anytime soon, and
Mm,
so the opportunity to give the laborers my vision, my ideas, gave them an opportunity to help shape them. And by
yes.
Allah's permission, I wasn't as concerned with doing interviews. I wasn't concerned with,
Mm,
social media as much. I
yes.
wanted to stop the hemorrhaging from the loss of our brother, establish human capital, build the quality of belief and faith in who these men are behind me, and then
Wow.
also begin to expand. So one of the projects that we're on is the expansion. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan gave us a loving challenge, and that was to meet and exceed the work that he did when he was the minister in Mosque number 7 from 1965 to 1975. As you know the history, they amassed 18 mosques.
Mm.
And so the minister does not speak idle words. So
Yes.
by him saying this to me, that means that he believes that it can be done. And if I'm at the point at this time that he believes that I, with the help of the laborers and of course the help of Allah and his guidance, can do it. And so, yes, we have the mosque in Harlem. Yes, we have the mosque in Brooklyn, and both meet at 11 o'clock. But one of the things that we have now instituted is mosque meetings in Queens, New York at 2 p.m. And
Wow.
of course in Northern New Jersey. So we have four mosque meetings going on in New York City, and we're about to open up a study group in the Bronx in about
Ooh.
3 weeks.
Come
So
on.
my thought was, you can't eclipse great work, in a year or two, but you definitely got to get the first base first. So we have
Yes.
first base right now, and
Allahu
Allah
Akbar.
is blessing us because the capacity of love that you mentioned, the capacity or just the confidence that you know what, we can do this, we have to do this. That is the type of energy that I'm trying to get the believers to realize, that they super believers, and if
Come on.
not us, then who? And if not now, then when?
Yes. Allahu Akbar. Well said. Thank you so much. So, 3 more minutes before our half point.
Well, I don't want to rush them, but I can go ahead and ask my next question. Um,
Mhm.
since we were actually talking about, the mosque and mosque number 7, I wanted to ask what position that you've held thus far has had the greatest impact on you and your love for Allah in this nation. So from orientation, uh, everything. Which position?
Certainly the ministry, because you know we say the minister. The
Yes,
word
right.
the definite article standardizes, epitomizes, and sets forth everything that comes after the word the.
That's right.
And he is the minister. And I feel unworthy to be in this position that he has had, because the minister he's ordinary, but he's extraordinary.
That's right.
He's more than what LeBron James is to NBA basketball. He's more than what Michael Jordan was to NBA basketball. Depending on where you from, he's more than what Lil Wayne is to hip hop, what Jay-Z is and was to hip hop. He is the supreme mind, the supreme spirit, the supreme receptacle of Allah's love. And so for me, just to be in a seat to help him, I don't feel worthy. I'm going to be very
Mm,
honest with you, but I'm here. And so I have to do my best. That means attitudinal adjustments. That means having the minister's heart, forgiving people. When people curse you, turning that cursing into a blessing, looking at people who we would turn our nose up if we didn't see that
mm.
supreme example and try to follow him. So certainly it's ministry, because it's forcing me to grow. Because
Teach.
I don't want to do anything to discredit the minister's pristine reputation and standard.
Mm. Allahu Akbar. That was what I'm talking
Indeed.
about.
Yeah. Allahu Akbar. That makes
Yes.
such perfect sense. I always, because I've held none of those positions, not any. But orientation class for me was just such a pivotal, moment in my life within Islam, that, and we know that the new believer is a very is
Mm.
the most precious believer. I can't remember how it's really said, but we know that they're very special. And so for me, I always have this thought in my mind that, orientation, being an orientation instructor. But in truth, when you step into the student ministry and you're over a number of people,
Mm.
I mean, the weight of that has to be immense. And when you have the greatest of examples behind you, and we know we don't want to
Yes.
do anything to let him down. So again, the forcing the force of Allah having you grow is, it would be the greatest impact because of
Well,
this.
Yes.
well, dear sister Mariam, you mentioned the orientation class instructor, and it makes me think of the hospital ward where the babies are. You know, the
Mm,
babies don't stay with their mothers overnight or even most of the day. They're in one of
right.
those baby wards, and
Mhm.
there's always
Yes.
this nurse, a no nonsense nurse, that ensures that you keep quiet, that you wash your
Yes.
hands, that you got your gown
Yes.
on, that you don't get too close because those babies are precious. So who we put in front of our young people, student minister or staff, is very, very important that they are walis and waliyas, protecting friends,
Mm,
but emphasis on protection, because this is the time that if they are hypocrites in the house, they like to nudge themselves and slink and slither in a very stealthy way
mm,
up to young people and ask them, why are you giving in charity? Why are you doing this? So when you have a
mm,
protector over the class whose sole intent is to get them to have their ex and get acclimated into mosque life, that's
mm.
very important. So the person over that class is integral.
Praise be to Allah.
Allahu Akbar. That's right. Beautiful analogy with the baby ward. That was
Yes, sir.
awesome. Well, dear family, we are at our half point mark, and we thank you for tuning in. Please continue to donate to Closing the Gap Broadcast Network via PayPal at jakekingdom1 at AOL.com, or you can cash app $CTG Broadcast. You can also mail those donations in to CTG Broadcast, P.O. Box 531, Ruskin, Florida 33575. And family, continue to display your comments and your questions for our student minister, Arthur Muhammad, out of Muhammad Mosque number 7. And we will absolutely bring those into view on the other side of the break. Thank you so much.
There is a need in our community for a universal change. And it has to start with the man. Being a man of God means being a man possessed of the knowledge, the spirit, and the power of God, anointed to do his will. To build a people, you first must make every man, no matter what his color, no matter what his race, every man, in order to be a man, must be a man of God, or he's not a man at all. Let us make man.
Here we go. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the second half of our interview with our beloved brother, student minister Arthur Muhammad. Brother Arvin says his processing class 23 years ago was the bomb and couldn't wait to join the Nation of Islam. Assalamu alaikum, brother Arvin. Is it on me? Am I truly?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm the first people on. I know I just asked that question.
But you usually ask on the other side, but you can go.
Okay, so, I'm trying to see if I should preface this student minister Arthur. Should I preface it? I don't know. I just asked the question. I'm going to ask the question, and if I'm, to ask a follow up, I will. So I wanted to know, have you helped brothers and sisters reestablish their connections with their families or slash children after incarceration, and also how to deal with the event of maybe the connection not being wanted to be desired on either party's part?
No, I didn't have to help reestablish any families, but I did have to counsel some families just to help them to understand each other. And when you're dealing with mediation, understanding a person's point of view is key. And sometimes we can't get past the insult or the argument, and we can't see that person's point of view. But if you have a person who is a middle person who feels that it is not might that rules, but it is right
Yes.
that rules. That person has to be trusted by both people, then some headway can be made.
Wow.
Okay. I'm gonna end up. I don't know if either I want to follow up right now, or I'm gonna end up coming back to it. But basically, so what say you on because you say you have counseled families from someone being incarcerated specifically.
Yes.
So has there ever been a time, or what would you suggest? One, has there ever been a time? And if not, what would you suggest, or what would be the indication that maybe one party should not be in, say, the children's lives because of toxicity or emotional abuse? Like what could be, like, what would you
That's just not with incarcerated people.
It's just not with incarcerated people, but because you have that background, I do want to know about that specifically.
You know,
But you can,
I think in general, uh, many people who have developed attitudes and characters, they present themselves a certain way. And when a lot of people come back from uh, incarceration, their attitude and character is shaped by the survival mode that or the atmosphere of survival in jail. And when you're living in someone's house and under someone's rule, you cannot act like you're still in jail, surviving
Yes.
for every little piece of an inch of compromise. You literally have to fall back. And so sometimes you have to let a person know, brother, you're not in jail no more. That's not your enemy. If it
Yeah.
came off disrespectful, maybe something you did was offensive. But you know, I hadn't had that position in terms of dealing with the incarcerated ones probably since 20 years ago. But I do still counsel people in the community. You know, one of the things that the minister has taught us is that when I send you to a mosque, I'm not sending you to a building, I'm sending you to a city. And so it's a very beautiful testament when you have people who are not members of the Nation of Islam, who don't even attend the
Yes.
mosque, but they see your work in the community and they humble themselves enough to ask, would you help? Would you help settle this difference that I'm having? Would you counsel me? I'm very honored when I do so. And
Yes.
when I embark and engage, I always let them know that the wisdom that I'm giving them is from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Praise be to God. Yes, sir. Student
But
Minister
let me say
Arthur, I
this
know.
though, while I'm on that point with the incarcerated ones, normally what the greatest transition is a technological transition. You know, brothers who are coming home from doing
That's true.
25 years, you know, just to use a cell phone. You know, they went
Wow.
to jail when flip phones were in. They went to jail when
Wow.
two-way pages were in.
Mm.
I remember I had to take this one young man to Home Depot because they were hiring, and I took him to Home Depot and I said, "Man, go on fill out the application. I'm going to look for a few things and I'll come back. And I saw him, baby, about 15 minutes with after with tears in his eyes. And I said, "What's the matter?"
Wow.
He said, "Man, they don't have a paper and pen application. They have a automated computer application, and I don't know how to
Wow.
use this."
Wow.
And man, I said, man, he was really in a time warp. So a
Wow.
lot of our people that come home because technology is rapidly changing, they have to make that adjustment as well. So that seems to be one of the biggest adjustments. And then depending on that person's status in the street when they were initially incarcerated, when they come home, if they try to regain that status, sometimes
Mm.
these younger generation of brothers that are holding down the block, they don't care about the stories of the past. So sometimes you have to
Wow.
talk to young brothers about moving on and forgetting that former life and starting anew.
Yes. Allahu Akbar. Praise be to Allah. Student Minister Arthur, I know early on when we were trying to establish a title, you had brought into mind the absence of the message inside of hip hop music of today. And you mentioned things like, well, first off, Zulu Nation's a part of your bio, right? And you had groups back then like Public Enemy and songs like, self-destruction. You headed for self-destruction with all of these actually at that time were huge artists at that time, but they came together, created a song that really, really, really never got the kind of play that it should have, but it did in the urban community at that time. My parents, I would remember growing up, and I mean, I wasn't born when the song came out, but when that song came on, they would compete against each other in the car. Who knew the best, who knew all the words, and all of the children, we basically memorized the words by watching them with it. But what is the solution that you foresee that can be done in implementing again that message, the absence of the teachings? You couldn't hear a rap song back then and not heard something about Malcolm X or something about the Nation of Islam or something about unity, Queen Latifah. What is it today that is preventing that? And what is the solution that you foresee that can implement that back in to today's hip hop?
Well, the simplistic answer is the knowledge of self.
Yes.
However, how are our people going to get the knowledge of self? Because if
Mm.
street knowledge is getting me everything that I need, I don't need the knowledge of self. That is the mindset of our young people. And obviously, if you have something to say, meaning you have knowledge of self, you can't help but saying something meaningful. If you don't
Ah,
have knowledge of self, you'll say anything. So
yes.
I believe that we members of the Nation of Islam who say that we live by the tenets of knowledge of self have to do a better job at making ourselves attractive. You see,
Mm.
I'm 58 years old and I'm a young 58, but at the end of the day, I attract who I am. This is what I
Wow.
love about you, the Farrakhan generation, the younger Muslims. You got to get on your grind. When I joined the Nation of Islam, I was
Mm.
23, and it was a whole bunch of us who was in our 20s who was
Mm.
soldiering 24/7, rolling up and down the highways, airplanes, in securing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We wouldn't accept no for an answer. We wasn't
Come on.
jilted when somebody said no. We just was going hard in the paint for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We wasn't bougie. We was straight soldiers. And that this young generation got to have that mindset right now. And so
Mm.
that's one thing. But the other thing that I believe that Allah, as He is doing, has to stir the waters for our young people to realize there is no God but God. Allah has
Yes.
to deem their possessions and their positions non void, null and void for them to be able to reach and look for something that is superior, something that has
Yes.
always been here, which is the guidance of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, given to us by the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. You
True.
know, there were two times in recent history that I remember a surge of people going back to church, getting into their knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And that was during Hurricane Katrina, when we saw the government's response to Black people dying, and during COVID, when we saw
Yes.
an abundance of Black people returning to Allah, and it appeared as if it was almost just us. I saw
Wow.
more people going back to church, going to online services. But as soon
Mm.
as Allah appeared to lift the scourge of this pandemic, people went back to business. And matter of fact, they went harder than before.
Yes.
So Allah has to move on the waters, and for us to realize as a people, there's no God but God, and
Wow.
we got to be in that vanguard position. So what does the
Yes.
scripture say? It says, be on guard for a day that will not smite the unjust exclusively. And let's be on our grind. Let's make sure that we are on the front line. So my last point on that is we have to make the decision that I am going to not only live my life, but I'm
Yes.
going to give my life spreading this message, no matter who you are, no matter how many years you've been in the Nation of Islam. I say unto us that we have not peaked in our ability and our desire to raise the dead to life. So come on, nation. Let's
Come
go
on.
harder in the paint for Farrakhan.
Praise Allah. Yes,
Allahu
sir.
Akbar.
Must do more. Must do more. Praise Allah. I'm going back. You slightly kind of touched on it before when I asked you about Sister Nichelle, but I'm going to ask it because I wanted more general. So I wanted to ask, what can you share? Because you're affectionately, in my brain, I call you a girl dad because you only have girls. So you're a girl dad, which is beautiful. I wanted to know and are any of them married? I'm trying to get
No,
married.
not yet. They all staying home. I told them, listen, y'all. I said, y'all take your time, but hurry
That's
up.
right. That's right. That's right.
They still live at home?
They still living at home, and you know
Praise
what?
Allah.
I don't even mind, because I've always been a protector of my daughters,
That's
and
right.
I wouldn't want living in New York, my daughters living in Ohio, and I can't
Come on.
respond to them. I remember
Mm.
one time. I remember one time I was in New York, and my daughter passed out. She was going to Howard University,
Wow.
and I was actually doing a DJ set, and I must have had about 12 to 14 speakers, and it would have took me about 2 hours to break down, and another 4.5 hours to
Wow.
get to Washington, D.C. And I felt so helpless that I couldn't respond, to my daughter. So I feel comforted having them near me, because again, if there's anything worth living for, and if
Yes.
there's anything worth dying for,
Yes.
and if there's anything worth killing for,
Yes.
got to be your own, especially when they right.
Come
So
on, brother.
I don't mind my daughter still living with me, but it's time for them to get their own spot, living near me, a block or two
Oh.
away.
When they get married, I'm totally in support of them staying until they have a ring on that finger, unless three of them or two, unless they all wanted to go off together. Then okay, maybe I've been swear. But anyhow,
That's right.
I wanted to speak on what can you share from your time of being a husband and a girl dad that can help
Mm.
close the gap between men and women, married,
Wow.
unmarried, courtship, just all in general.
Mm.
You spoke
Beautiful
earlier
question.
about personality. That's more of a courtship, and that's more of a courtship thing. But what say you?
Beautiful question.
Well, I'll just say, for me, a significant area that I had to really learn is fathering teenagers versus fathering young adults.
Yes. Yes.
There's a science to fathering young adults, either if they live in your house or they don't, because you can't treat them like children anymore. And I had to begin to respect my daughters who still have a degree of dependence on me. I had to respect them as adults. And I have to respect the fact that they have the right to choose and to make their decisions. And I have to respect the fact that I should love them irregardless
Mm.
of if what they choose I don't feel is in their best interest. And,
Yes.
and again, our example is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I look
Yes.
at him, love his family, and it's unconditional. So
Yes.
any slight small issues that I may have that I feel like giving the silent treatment to, I've been inspired to go ahead and love my daughters even stronger and harder and try to
Mm.
position myself to be able to give them wisdom instead of criticism and critique and being so hard
Yes.
all the time. Sometimes they want daddy just to minister unto them. And so, I have to say, look, if I could do it to the people in the street, in the community, then I could do it to my own family.
That's right.
I'm glad that you took it to fatherhood rather than male and female relationships, only because I am in the position of mothering a teenager, which is so much different from mothering a 5-year-old. I'm like, and so that
Yes, indeed.
the learning the balance of giving her more independence and, regaining trust and seeing that she's growing into a young adult, more so than she is that baby of a child.
Excuse me, sister Maryam. We get put out the mosque for lying. Did you say that you have a teenage daughter?
Looking like a teenager herself, right?
Exactly.
So I'm glad you mentioned that because it's just so different. Like I look at my daughter and I'm like, who are you? You're such a young lady now. Like, and I feel so much the same. So it's funny that you say that because I had her 3 weeks before my 21st. And so we've kind of been growing together, and I haven't really physically changed, but she has grown from a baby until we're literally almost the same height. So I'm like, who are you? I don't understand.
Oh,
so I appreciate it because I can implement that into my life.
That's right.
Just striving to be more like him within my mothering and listening, not critiquing as much, because us moms do that as well.
Yes. Praise be to Allah. Well, family, we at 7:53, and I know Student Minister Arthur has to get back to that bowling so he can finally put that shirt to work. So, do you think it's okay, Sister Maryam, to ask the last question? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, Student Minister Arthur, I don't know how this would work with you because I can imagine you had to have been in a private setting with the Messiah, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, before, but I'll ask it anyway because maybe it's a little different. I generally ask this question to all the interviewees at the end, and it goes like this. If you were, Student Minister Arthur, in a private setting with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and there was no one around, there was no personal staff, no other staff, just you and him and the privacy of you and him, what would you like to say to him, knowing that his departure is near, that would provide him comfort based on the love of your activity while he's gone?
I would ask the minister to read my heart.
Ooh.
I would ask him to scan my spirit and scan my mind and assess what I need to do in his absence to help to keep the flock together. It's not, brother Michael, it's not speeches, bro. Beloved.
Yes.
It's not photo ops. It's not
Yes.
catchphrases. It's
Yes.
not one-liners.
Mm.
Our hearts got to be right.
Mm.
Because when you have believers that are giving up the world and sacrificing their life, they got to know that their leadership is down to go down with the ship, down to be on the front lines, down to be the first one to knuckle up, down to help raise money to help them when they're not doing right. I want to have a good heart. See,
Yes.
no, notice this.
Mm.
None of the believers got a problem with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Sometimes we have a problem with each other. And so
Mm.
that's why the measure of a follower of Jesus is those who love one another like they love him.
Mm.
So I want to have a better heart, brother. And I
Yes.
want to know, sometimes because the eye is designed to look out and not in, I want to know how I can improve and be better like him to close the gap.
Wow.
We chose the subject closing the gap by expanding the mind. See, the
Yes.
Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wants the gap he wants the gap closed because
Mm.
Allah is feeding him. So he's constantly moving. And if we stay stuck on attitudes, if we stay stuck on just understanding the surahs that we understand, and we stay stuck on the lessons and our understanding, then the gap widens. See, the minister is saying to us, close the gap. He
Close
doesn't
the gap.
want to be a giant leader with a bunch of midget followers.
Mm. Mm.
So the
Mm.
more we expand our mind, our
Mm.
capacity to withstand and our capacity to do what we know, then we inch up a little bit closer to him because we have to be little Farrakhan's to the people. When we come in
That's
front of the
right.
people, they need to feel the spirit of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And this is why you hear some ministers say, "Oh Allah, please take out me and fill me with you."
You. Come on.
That is the epitome of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So that's what I would ask him if I had an opportunity to
Oh
be one on
Lord.
one in the
That
oneness.
is beautiful. That was beautiful.
All praise to Allah.
Like really. Yeah, Sister Miriam too.
Yeah, no, you're swell. You're swell. Minister Arthur, I think you're a swell brother. All praise to
Yes,
Allah.
he
I think
is.
you are. I think you have a beautiful heart. I
I'm
think
I grew up
striving.
on
All
Minister
praise
Arthur,
due to
man.
Allah. Allahu Akbar.
very beautiful.
I grew up on Minister Arthur being the designated just hype man since I was a child. We go
Yes,
to
sir.
Savings Day and Minister Arthur's there. DJing right there. And I just thank you for all of the childhood memories that you gave us as youth growing up in this Eastern area. You were one of us and still are. And that's why I didn't
All
know your
praise
age
due
until
to
just
Allah.
now.
Yes, sir. Man, I'm not. Hey, I did 3 miles this morning on that track, man. I gotta drop. I gotta drop about 12, 15 because I gotta
Oh,
stay in fighting shape. They say what? You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So
you're
I
ready.
gotta be in that
Who's that?
fighting shape. I'm not accepting old. I'm just accepting them numbers, but I don't. Sometimes we
That's
can't
right.
do we can't do nothing about them hinges and twinges we feel when we wake up. But
Yeah.
I still got to hit that bag. Still got to run some track.
Come on.
All praises due to Allah.
That's right, Minister Arthur.
Not bad.
Praise be to Allah. Sister Miriam.
No, I got to get back out there myself. I was doing a mile challenge, and now a mile.
Well,
Yeah.
let me say this. Let me say this. Sometimes we get in a rut.
Mm.
We get in a rut, and then we start eating too much, and we start sleeping too long. And we have to encourage each other when we see one another getting a little pudgy, cheeks getting a little fat. We gotta with love say, "Hey man, come over the house. Man, I just got this.
Yes.
Why don't you try this? I got a new Peloton. Why don't you try this out? Or
Yes.
listen, let's go out walking and let's pray together. We have to
Yes.
do that opposed to judging each other or not saying something, and we seeing our brother and sister self-destructing right
Mm,
before our eyes.
come on. Allahu
Make sure we're
Akbar.
doing it with love. Alhamdulillah.
That's
Yes,
right.
but
That's
yes,
right.
you must say something.
Yes.
Just want to say thank you. I've
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
enjoyed
much.
you very
Mariam.
much. Inshallah, I'll be able to meet you one day and your beautiful family.
I
And
would love that. As y'all say less.
Yes, right.
so yes,
Now,
sir.
what city are you out of, dear sister?
We are currently in Columbia, South Carolina, but probably 15 will be alive again. So I registered at 15 in Atlanta, but right now we're currently residing in South Carolina, Mosque.
Well, just let us know
But we're
when
one
you
nation,
come to
we're
New York. But let us know when you come to New York, and we make sure that my beautiful daughters make sure that they take you around, and my wife and I prepare a wonderful meal for you.
Ooh,
Well,
and
my
Yes.
wife. I'm not gonna prepare the meal. My wife is.
well, it'll be
That's
me
right.
and my daughter. So yes, sir. I would thoroughly, really, truly enjoy that. So praise to Allah. Thank you, beloved.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
right.
May Allah bless you and bless the Closing the Gap show. I think that what y'all are doing by having the Farrakhan generation, the original show, having the Rockwell podcast
Yes.
and others, you're starting to build a nice conglomerate. And it seems as this is the nucleus for Final Call television. I don't know, but
Mm.
I'm glad that you're doing. I'm watching your works, and I pray Allah that you are successful.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much. All praises is due to Allah. Yes, sir. Sister Maryam, you take us out.
You do not want to do donations one more
Oh,
time.
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. One more time. Dear family, we thank you for tuning in to this awesome interview with our dear beloved student minister, author out of Muhammad Mosque, number 7. Please continue to donate to Closing the Gap Broadcast Network via PayPal, JKingdom1 at AOL.com, or you can cash app to $ CTG Broadcast. You can also mail those into CTG Broadcast, P.O. Box 531, Ruskin, Florida 33575. And back to you, Sister Maryam.
I remember the last time I was on, I had it all written out and I sounded so
I
good.
know.
And I was doing so well, but we're back to our old ways. So forgive me.
Yes, ma'am.
There's so many shows that we have on the network now. Click on one. We do want to say this. Follow the new YouTube channel, which is CTG Broadcast. The other one was deleted, but it's all right because we're still here by Allah's grace. And we want you to, if there's any episodes that you haven't seen, you can definitely visit us on the Facebook channel, which is still Closing the Gap Broadcast. And
Yes.
you can look at any previous episodes of any of our shows that we have been broadcasting thus far. Make sure you join us Thursday, 1 p.m. with Sister Angelica for Angelica's podcast. I do believe Nuestra is still doing shows. If not, we still have their previous shows.
Yes.
I mean, we have things every day. We have
Every
Sister
day except Friday now. That's
Except
it.
Friday, but Sister Dr. Patrice, make sure to tune into her show. Make sure to tune into DJ Rockwell, Atlanta Stand Up. Whoop, whoop. Make sure to on Sundays we have Closing the Gap presents I Have a Testimony with our beloved brother, student minister Willie Muhammad, and of course
Yeah.
Saturday 7 p.m. Eastern time. You can join us for the Mother broadcast, Closing the Gap broadcast with student minister James, student
Good
minister
job.
Chad, and beloved sister Starla of Final Call newspaper. And that's all I have. We love
You
you. And
did it.
inshallah, we'll see you again very soon. Next week we have
Love you.
Sister
Next
Sherry.
week.
School starting back. So Sister Sherry next week from
With
Asiatic
the
Minds.
Asiatic Minds. Yes.
Asiatic Minds.
We love you, family, so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Oh my God.